I'm Renee. I'm sitting in my office on the third floor of the university, looking out at the students walking to class. It's been 7 years since my life was turned upside down, and now, I'm the president of the very institution that once tried to erase me. A few days ago, I received a call from my mother. The moment I picked up the phone and heard her voice, all the old memories and emotions came flooding back. She was in shock, stammering about the letter from the university, the one that exposed their long-hidden secrets and announced my appointment as the interim president. It all started when I was 18. I was born just 2 minutes after my twin brother, Ethan. We grew up in a well-to-do family in a small town. My father, Mr. Thompson, was a respected administrator at a local college, and my mother, Mrs. Thompson, was a stay-at-home mom who was overly protective of Ethan. Throughout our childhood, it was clear that Ethan was the center of my parents' world. He was a bit of a free spirit, not very academically inclined. When he brought home a D in physics during our junior year of high school, my father sat him down and said, "Science isn't your thing, Ethan. You're more of an artist." Meanwhile, when I brought home an A+ in the same class, my mother merely said, "You could have done better if you'd studied harder." I quickly learned to keep my achievements low-key. If I won a writing competition, I'd tuck the certificate away in my drawer. Celebrations were always for Ethan, like when he managed to finish a week-long art project. I watched as my mother framed his participation certificate, while my first-place ribbon from a regional math competition gathered dust in my desk. As the college application season approached, my mother made it clear that Ethan and she were a team, and I was just there to support them. One evening, while I was researching scholarships, she said, "Maybe you should apply to the same schools as Ethan. It'll make things simpler." I knew she meant it would be simpler for Ethan, not for me. Ethan applied to 6 prestigious schools, but his applications were lackluster. He spent his senior year December playing video games, while I was up late every night writing and rewriting my essays. I applied to 12 schools, aiming for those with good financial aid and far enough from home so I could have some independence. In March, the acceptance letters started arriving. Ethan was listed at every school he applied to, which gave my parents hope that they could somehow turn it around. I, on the other hand, got into 9 out of the 12 schools I applied to. But my mother was too busy refreshing Ethan's application portals to even ask me where I'd been accepted. Then, on April 8th, I received a large envelope. It wasn't an acceptance letter, it was a full-ride scholarship to a top-tier university. The scholarship covered tuition, room, and board, and was renewable for 4 years if I maintained a 3.5 GPA, with an estimated value of $55,000 per year. I was both excited and terrified. I knew this would cause a problem in my family because it was something Ethan couldn't have. I waited until dinner to show my parents. When I brought the letter downstairs, my mother was sitting on the couch with Ethan. He'd just received another wait list update with no progress. I held the envelope in my hands and said, "I need to show you something." My mother looked up, her face already tense. I could tell she'd been crying. I handed her the letter. She read it without any change in expression and then passed it to my father, who was standing in the doorway. His jaw clenched, and there was an 8-second silence. My father finally said, "That's good, Renee," without even looking at me. Ethan just glanced at the letter and said, "Cool," in a flat voice. Then, my mother quickly took the letter from my father, folded it, and put it in the side table drawer, saying, "We'll look at this later." That night, my parents called me into their bedroom. Ethan wasn't there. My father closed the door, and my mother sat on the edge of the bed with her arms crossed. My father said, "We need to talk about your scholarship." I thought they were going to ask about the deadlines, but instead, my mother said, "Your brother is struggling. He's wait-listed everywhere, and he's heartbroken." My father cut me off when I tried to say I understood. He said, "You've never faced rejection like this." My mother then leaned forward and said, "This scholarship is great, but this isn't the time to celebrate you, not while Ethan is hurting." I was devastated. I said, "I'm not celebrating. I'm just telling you." But my father said, "Telling us feels like celebrating when your brother is sitting in the next room, worried about his future." My mother's voice dropped. "Family comes first, Renee. Whether you understand that now or not." I asked, "What do you want me to do?" They told me it would be best if I declined the scholarship. I was shocked. I said, "This is my future," but my mother countered, "Ethan is your family, and this scholarship is just 4 years." I should have fought harder, but I was 18 and still believed my parents knew what was best. I said I'd think about it. My mother seemed relieved and said they'd hold on to the paperwork. 2 days passed, and my parents acted like the conversation never happened. But I noticed the letter was gone from the drawer, and my mother started checking my laptop history. My father casually asked if I'd responded to the scholarship office. I said no, that I was still thinking. On April 28th, I worked my evening shift at the local bookstore from 4 to 9 p.m. When I got home at 9:30, my parents were in the living room, and Ethan was upstairs. My mother asked how work was, and I said it was fine. I went to my room, sat on my bed, and stared at my phone. I thought about sending the acceptance email right then, but I was tired and still hoped my parents would change their minds. While I was at work, my mother walked into my room. Since we had a no secrets family rule, there was no password on my laptop. She logged into my Gmail, wrote an email to the scholarship office declining the offer, and sent it. Then, she called my father at his office. He was the assistant director of student records at a nearby college, with access to national databases. My mother told him she'd sent the decline, and he asked if she'd closed the door. When she didn't answer, he told her to send another email to make sure I couldn't get back in. So, she wrote an email to the admissions office, claiming that I might have misrepresented some aspects of my application and asking them to flag my file. The next morning, my father went to his office and logged into the National Student Clearinghouse. He added a note about the supposed ethics concern and marked it confidential. That evening, when I checked my email, I saw the automated reply from the scholarship office saying they'd received my decline. I was in shock. I scrolled through my sent folder and saw both emails. I walked downstairs and confronted my mother. She said she'd done what was necessary to protect the family. My father also defended her, saying it was a difficult choice. I was furious. I said, "You just destroyed my future." But they told me there were other schools and that I'd be fine. I knew they were wrong. I went back upstairs, restored my acceptance on the scholarship portal, and took screenshots of everything as evidence. I also wrote an email to the admissions office clarifying that the emails were not sent by me. I packed a bag and left the house at 2:35 a.m. Leaving a note saying I was taking the scholarship. I got into my old 2008 Ford Focus and drove away without looking back. In August, I went to the university for move-in day. But when I went to student services, I was told there was an issue with my file. The associate dean, Ms. Roberts, showed me the emails my mother had sent and a flag from the National Student Clearinghouse. She said the decision was final and I couldn't enroll. I was heartbroken. I called my mother, and she pretended not to know what I was talking about. I spent that night in my car in the university parking lot, watching the future I'd dreamed of slip away. The next morning, I found a community college that was still accepting applications. I applied and got in. I moved into a small apartment with a roommate I met on Craigslist and worked multiple jobs to pay for my tuition and living expenses. Despite the setbacks, I didn't give up. I worked hard, and my English professor, Dr. Miller, noticed my potential. She told me I didn't belong at the community college and promised to write me a recommendation when I was ready to transfer. In the spring semester, I applied to 8 state universities. With Dr. Miller's recommendation, I got accepted to 6 of them. I chose a university 3 hours from home, where I declared 3 majors, political science, finance, and education policy. I worked 3 jobs, took 19 to 21 credits per semester, and lived in the cheapest dorm. I didn't go home for holidays and slept only 4 hours a night. But I was determined to prove myself. After graduating summa cum laude, I applied to 3 graduate programs and got into all of them. I chose Princeton, where I received a full tuition waiver and a $35,000 a year stipend. 2 years later, I graduated from Princeton in the top 5% of my class. I had $45,000 in student loans, no contact with my family, and a job offer from the university that had blacklisted me. I took the job as the assistant to the president. One day, while accessing the university's document management system, I found my old admissions file. It had all the evidence of the forged emails and the administrative flag. Then, the university was hit by a scandal. The president was accused of financial mismanagement and was forced to resign. The board of trustees needed an interim president, and my name came up. After some deliberation, they offered me the position. I accepted, and that evening, I met with the university's attorney, Ms. Harris. I told her about the identity fraud and abuse of administrative access committed by my parents. She was shocked and said it was a serious crime. I presented all the evidence to the Board of Trustees, and they voted unanimously to exonerate me, retroactively award me the scholarship, and pay me $98,000 in restitution. They also referred my father to the appropriate authorities for investigation. I had the university send a gold-sealed envelope to my parents, containing the press release about my appointment as interim president and the board's resolution. When my mother called me, I finally confronted her and told her that our family was no longer what it used to be. A few days later, my parents came to my office. My mother was in tears, and my father was angry. They tried to justify their actions, but I wouldn't listen. I told them they'd committed crimes and that they were responsible for the restitution. I also said that I wasn't pressing criminal charges out of pragmatism, not mercy. My father was fired from his job, and he can no longer work in higher education administration. My mother faced no criminal charges, but they have to pay $1,900 a month for 5 years. My brother Ethan reached out to me after the press conference. He said he didn't know what our parents had done. I'm still not sure if I can forgive him, but I'm willing to give it a try. As I sit here in my office, looking out at the students, I know that I've not only survived but also built a better future. I'm determined to make sure that no other student at this university has to go through what I did. This is not revenge, it's justice.